An intellectual carrot, the mind boggles.
You see? You see? You're stupid minds. Stupid! Stupid!
Earth has had Santa Claus long enough. We will bring him to Mars.
I've been afraid a lot of times in my life, but I didn't know the real meaning of fear until I had kissed Becky.
One thing will be clear. It's not for man to interfere in the ways of God.
It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Earth vs. Soup episode, 142? I'm Aaron Pollier.
I'm Darlene.
We threatened to do it, and we did it. We watched The Black Cat from 1934. It's a Universal Pictures movie. It stars Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff, and it is not like matter and antimatter reacting together. They actually seemingly get along very well together.
And even if they had the animosity, that animosity wouldn't have shown because
they're professionals.
Well, I was going to say because this movie, they were on, they were
antagonizing each other.
Antagonists. And neither one of them are the good guy.
Yeah, neither one of them is. But what this movie does have is because it has Lugosi and Karloff, it has like this critical mass of charisma on it where I think it actually helps the movie in some ways and hinders it.
This movie, you can actually see the two different types of
acting.
Well, Bela Lugosi's got the charisma, and Karloff has the presence of menacing.
Yeah, Karloff can feel very antagonistic when he wants to, and it's not just makeup. Like, he seemingly has this ability to just stare at people, kind of like Lugosi does. Lugosi ends up acting with his eyes a lot, and
they light it up too.
Well, yeah, they do the Kirk light on both of them at different times, but
excuse me.
Yeah, you see, Lugosi is all about the charm. He can make you melt.
And this is another one of those films that all the female things are just...
Characters, not things. Characters.
They're things in this one.
Okay.
That's what I meant. They're objects in this movie.
Yes. I would say there aren't very... Like, the one main lady in this is played by Julie Bishop, and it's Joan Allison. Do I think she's given enough work in this movie with what they gave her? I think she did a fine job. I don't think that she had enough in it. Let's put it that way. Regardless, we should probably talk about the plot first, because this movie we're both kind of mixed on. It has some things that we absolutely love.
Well, let me go back through it. The weird part is it aired on May 7th of 1934 in the U.S., but in New York City, it was May 18th.
Okay.
So that's kind of backwards from what they usually do. It's 69 minutes long. It was the biggest box office hit of the year for Universal. It had a budget of $95,743.31.
Okay.
It made $236,000.
Okay.
You did want to talk about the director a bit, didn't you?
A little bit. The director is Edgar G. Ulmer, and I guess he had an affair with one of the studio head's wives, and that wife divorced her husband and married him, and he got blackballed for quite a while and ended up doing really garbage movies for the rest of his career, including Beyond the Time Barrier, which we actually have reviewed on Earth vs. Soup. I think actually it was episode 2 in fact.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
episode 2.
So he directed that, and we had mixed feelings about it. Like it was a good movie, but the ending was really awful. It was bad. It was anyway.
There's a lot of uncredited people in this movie.
Okay.
I wanted to make that known because
Okay.
I was sitting there looking for somebody, and it was the maid.
Okay.
You know, the one that brings out the clear bowl
Okay.
for them to wash their hands and that.
Okay.
And I couldn't find her on
Anyway.
it. But there's a lot of uncredited people, because if you go into the typecast and you take all of them, you'll find there's a lot of uncredited.
Not typecast, going into the cast.
The top cast.
Top cast. Okay.
The top cast, you need to go into all the cast, and then you'll see that there is a lot of
Sure.
uncredited things. This is also before the ratings.
Pre-code.
Pre-code.
So there's a little bit of pre-code shenanigans in this, but we'll talk about it when we're in the plot. So we're at a busy train station, and I thought that was kind of nice use of stock footage. You don't need to have live, like specially filmed stuff for a busy train station. And we're actually on the Orient Express. We're following a new couple, Peter Allison and Joan Allison.
And they just married and are on their honeymoon, going to Hungary for their... Hungary?
Mm-hmm.
It was Hungary, not Hungary?
Hungary.
Oh, okay.
They're going to Budapest is actually where they're going. And it turns out that they have to share a compartment, a train compartment, with Bela Lugosi, who's playing Dr. Vitus Verdegast. I just call him Bela Lugosi all the way through my notes because, honestly, he's Bela Lugosi. And it does not matter if that is not a character or not.
You yelled at me for one time of this, and I put it as Vetus.
Vetus, fine. I have it written as Bela or Lugosi because, honestly, Bela Lugosi outshines any part he's playing. Whereas I think Karloff does the same thing in a different way.
Well, they typically they have this scared bell. What do they call those ticket? The people that take your tickets and that.
Conductor
comes in and is apologizing because there was a screw up in the ticketing or whatever.
Yeah, and they have to share the compartment with Bela Lugosi.
And before the guy even finishes, Bela Lugosi comes in and kind of
he oozes charm.
You don't even see the conductor leave in.
Well, it's that when Bela Lugosi wants to smile and start charming you, he will. Yes,
he will. That's the difference between Karloff and Bela Lugosi.
Lugosi is just going to smile at you and you go, okay, whatever you need, sir. I don't think Lugosi does very well I don't think he would do very well being a angry, despicable person. I think he does fine as Igor in the Son of Frankenstein, and he is sort of that, but he's also under a whole bunch of makeup. His charisma still shines through. It's just not as powerful as it is.
You could also say the same thing with Karloff with the menacingness with Frankenstein. But he also played the charm up too in that one with the monk.
Yeah, he did.
So they're really in this movie, I think, putting them into the areas that they work the best.
What we're also trying to say is that Lugosi and Karloff are legends for a reason. I don't think there's modern equivalents. I honestly don't. I don't think there's modern equivalent of actors or actresses that just can instantly turn on the charm. Maybe, and I hate saying this because I really don't like him. Tom Cruise can really turn on the charm.
But it always gives me the creep factor.
Yeah, but I'm sure Bela Lugosi would have gotten you the creep factor too. But anyway.
But everywhere that he does it, he's supposed to be the creep factor. Where
does he? I mean,
where Tom Cruise is supposed to be charming, and I'm like, You're coming
Or
off
Brad Pitt might be another one, like Brad Pitt or George Clooney.
You know who is the guy that played Thor?
Oh yeah, Chris Hemsworth.
He can do that.
Okay,
he can do that.
I guess he could. Yeah, you're right. But I still don't know if he's at the same level as Bela Lugosi. That's the thing. Like, anyway, they have to share this train car. They do. We get a quick scene of Bela Lugosi stroking Joan Allison's hair while she sleeps, and Peter catches him doing it.
Yes, and looks at him. He does. The actor did a good job because it was
like,
a glare.
what the hell is going on?
It was a glare.
And he's like, I'm very sorry.
She looks like Karen, my wife.
My wife. I lost her right after or during the war. And obviously, he's talking about World War I. And World War I does come into play in this movie quite a bit. Okay, the war at this point.
Because the two main characters.
Honestly, if I was Peter, even with that explanation, I'd be like, dude, get the hell out. Get the hell out. You don't stroke my wife's hair while she sleeps, while I was sleeping right next to her. I don't care what the reason is. If I caught some dude stroking your hair on like a train car,
you'd probably let me punch him.
No, I'd lose my shit. I would. But then you'd punch him, sure. I wouldn't punch him first. I'll let you do that. But I'm going to lose my shit on this guy. Anyway, they end up arriving at their destination, and they take this like truck taxi. And this guy, the driver,
I thought it was a bus.
It's not really, because they're the only ones in it. It's like a taxi, but it's like a truck. Anyway.
It had seats like a bus, is why I was like, bus.
The guy is just chattering away how this area of Austria-Hungary had like a massive World War I battle where bodies were piled like yards deep, and that the ravines bled with blood for years afterwards.
Yeah, and
I'm like, whoa, what the
talking
hell?
As it's raining extremely hard outside.
Yeah, and then
it precludes you to that there is going to be an accident.
Yeah, and it immediately felt like Old Dark House, right? Like, they're on a mountain path, they're going to get into a wreck. They do, because a tree falls across the road, and they tumble down the side of I won't say it's a big hill, but they do tumble down the side of a hill.
The side of a ravine, yes.
Yeah. So, Bella sees a facility off in the distance, and he goes, I know the guy that owns that. This is where I was going to go anyway. I can treat Joan there, because Joan's injured. She's like knocked unconscious. She actually seemingly had like something stuck through her like shoulder.
Maybe a
piece of glass or something like that. It was a wound. There was a wound, because all the way through the rest of the movie, we see that there's this big patch on her shoulder. Excuse me. So they go to this facility, and it's this place that's both said to be built on top of by a Dr. Pulzig, who's played by Karloff. Okay. But this facility, like I said, it's either built by him because he's an architect.
Yes.
Or it was built on top of a World War I facility that held cannon. It's both things.
Both things.
So he's incorporated like this magnificent, modern-ish building. I can't say it's Art Deco. It's more postmodern, but it's 1930s. It's kind of even brutalist, like Soviet-style brutalism in a weird way. Architecturally, it's actually interesting because it does feel way ahead of its time.
It could be probably brutal, Russian brutalism, because I think Bela Lugosi's character was stuck in Russia for a while.
By Lake Baikal. Yes, he was. He even says that he was put into a gulag after World War I.
By this person, from what I understand.
Yeah, that he had stayed in this gulag near Lake Baikal for years and years and years, and he's just escaped effectively. And he's coming to find his friend who he knew during the war. Well, anyway.
Friend should be in quotation marks.
Yes. So Joan is injured. She's going to be treated by Bela Lugosi, and Karloff enters the room. Karloff is freaking intimidating. He looks amazing. He immediately issues forth this presence of menace.
And they do some weird costuming with him. Did you notice that?
Yes.
The first thing, he's in a kind of a Oriental, Asian, kind of weird, not
silk
quite.
robes-ish.
It's a silk robe, but it has the sleeves kind of Japanese-like. It's
not a kimono, though. Yeah, it's weird. When he first gets up, when he first wakes up, he's shown in silhouette against this silk hanging on the bed, because he turns on the light and he looks angular. He looks inhuman in silhouette. And I think this is down to both incredibly well done cinematography, good direction, good set design, all that, because he walks out from behind of it and behind the silk screen, and he doesn't have prosthetics on to make him look angular or anything like that. It was just the way he held his body against the light, knowing that the silk screen was going to be folded in such a way. It's 3 seconds.
There was something else I always noticed about Karloff. He constantly had his head tilted down to give that angular look.
Yes. It always put his face into a bit of a shadow.
But even though he was always got that head tilted down,
his eyes were always forward.
His eyes were all forward, and he was not, it wasn't, how do you want to put it? It didn't come off as being subservient or anything. It came off menacing.
Yeah, it's
he was in control.
My head is down because I will bowl through you. I am angry. I am in control. I don't need to be face forward. I can look at the ground and still destroy you where you stand. It's that kind of feeling that he gives off. So again, Karloff, 10 out of 10, goddamn legend. There's a reason, again, why these people are legends. Bella's wondering what happened to his wife and daughter, and he's trying to talk to Karloff about it because supposedly Karloff's character knows what happened to his wife and daughter after the war.
And this is where I got confused, because I couldn't tell whether it was Karen was his wife or his daughter.
Karen was his daughter. His wife was somebody else.
And I think both of them's name was Karen, and that was confusing me.
Yeah, and I don't know. But their conversation is interrupted by Peter Allison, who comes in. And it turns out that we learned that he's a mystery author, and he's trying to act all, camp about it. Maybe not camp. He's trying to play up the fact that, mysteries really interest me and all that. And you see Karloff and Lugosi eyeing each other this entire time and subtly communicating between each other this kind of abject hate or mistrust. And this mystery author who's talking about how his characters have to be so aware and all that, who's trying to play up the fact that he's a mystery author, is completely missing the subtext in this scene, completely missing it. And it's not done as humor. It's not supposed to be funny. No. It's supposed to be oh crap, these guys really are operating on a completely different level. There is some serious shit going on. Well, it turns out that Bella sees a black cat that walks past the door. All right, so normally this is not a big deal. It's a black cat, big deal. But Lugosi loses his shit, immediately picks up a throwing knife that just so happens to be nearby.
I don't know where he came up with that knife.
Well, I think he misuses it because the cat doesn't get killed, but he hurls this knife at this black cat, and the cat screams like he got nailed. And I'm like, oh man, I wrote down in my notes that Lugosi kills a cat.
That's what I wrote.
No, but he doesn't. He doesn't kill this cat. I guess he just hit it with the butt of this knife rather than killing it. And it turns out that he has an abject fear of black cats. And is this the reason why Karloff's keeping this black cat around?
I think so.
I don't think so, because it just so happens it's all coincidence that Lugosi ends up here. Because remember...
No, he was going there.
Yeah, well, yes, he was going there, but it's not like Karloff knew he was. That's what's weird. Okay, so I think there's some bad mystery stuff in this movie. Let's put it that way. So Joan Allison wakes up, enters the room, and is seemingly in a bit of a daze. We get to actually see an electric clock. It's not digital, but there's this electric clock in Peter Allison's room. And I thought it was really cool. It was this kind of clockwork electrical thing that switched the numbers over. And I thought, well, 1934, that's pretty advanced for the time. And if you look at all these rooms that Karloff gives his guests, quote unquote,
it would be something that you'd see in the 60s.
It would be something, well, all the rooms by themselves look like something out of the 1960s.
And the doors are Japanese-like.
They're sliding doors,
They slide into. And there's the weird part is that when Karloff sends them to their rooms, the room is her bedroom, Vitis's, and then and there's a change of rooms because
Peter wants to be near his wife, but he didn't know that they had adjoining doors. It's Lugosi that comes in and says, "Hey, I'm adjacent to your wife's room. Do you want my room? Well, I'll switch with you." And here's the thing. Lugosi is not a villain in this movie. Does he do bad things? Yeah, of course he does. But he actually is trying to be a hero in this all the way through. Because he's not trying to do anything to Joan and Peter. He's trying to help them all the way through this thing. Okay? But he does horrible things well, I wouldn't say horrible. He does bad things. A couple. But he's arguably a hero in this. So what we end up having is a series of very strange scenes. Again, this is a short movie, but I'm going to try to sum these scenes up. Basically, Karloff is an Aleister Crowley type figure. He is a Satanist. Yes, I know Aleister Crowley technically isn't a Satanist, but they are making him a Aleister Crowley-like figure who is a Satanist in this movie. He has women that are taxidermied.
And
yes, because they're hanging up in his basement on hooks.
And the basement is from the war.
It's a World War I artillery bunker. And these women, it turns out, are Bella's wife from the war, along with a lot of other women, and they're all wearing like little white shifts
that you can see
you can see through, basically, because it's pre-code.
You can see through.
It's pre-code.
And you can see through those white ones at the end too.
Yeah.
Those Greek-like.
Yeah, but not a whole lot. If this is nowhere near as gratuitous as, let's say, Andy Sedaris films.
Oh, no.
No, everything's covered. This is all covered. This is just their thin silk shifts. Okay?
And I think that was kind of deliberate.
Yeah, of course it was deliberate, but it wasn't.
It goes with the creep factor of
he's keeping these women to like look at and own, basically.
I can't pronounce his last name. Halmar.
What?
The character
Halmar Pulsig. I always refer to him as Karloff in this film, and he actually has Lugosi's daughter. He's sleeping with her.
Yeah, and you find out that's next door to Peter's wife, Joan. The room is. Yeah,
they're screwing in there. And he didn't tell Karen, his Lugosi's daughter, that Lugosi was there because he just plans on killing everybody.
No, he tells Karen, the daughter, to stay in the room.
Yeah, because he doesn't want the daughter to go out and see her father. Because, I mean, this is like 15, 20 years after the war.
And he's sleeping with a young...
Because, the daughter was young at the end of the war. And
I don't get whether he married...
No, he killed the wife. The wife's there because he takes Bella down to see her taxidermied body hanging on hooks. Holy crap. I mean, this movie is dark in sections. Well, anyway... Bella and Karloff play a game of chess because it turns out Karloff has every intention of killing the Allisons. in a sacrifice on the new moon.
And Karloff suggests for him to play a game with
to play a game against Lugosi, and if Lugosi wins, he'll let them go.
And that's when the police come in. And I don't even know why.
Well, they're coming in because of the car wreck.
Okay.
And the Allisons are like, well, we're going to leave like later tonight. We're going to see if we can borrow the car from Karloff because Karloff has this beautiful estate.
Yeah, Peter tries very hard during this chess game to leave.
And he can't.
And it goes down to he actually gets his wife, tells her not to pack anything. We're just going to go. And the servant stops him.
Yeah, he stops him, and she gets knocked out.
She passes out. He gets knocked out.
He gets thrown into like this weird circular trap room. Like some of the sets in this movie are real life. I actually will say.
Well, I actually said it.
All the sets.
It was sliding, underground sliding cement block wall.
It wasn't sliding wall though. It was the room that he got tossed in rotated. So it looked like the walls slid around the outside, but it was perspective. It was a circular room that rotated.
It was cement blocks.
Yeah, because it was just built inside of like a tower, let's say.
So it would be where they would have had the gun and maybe.
Yeah. It could have been a turret, like a big turret, yeah.
Karloff starts playing Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, he's on an organ playing Phantom of the Opera. Obviously, Lugosi loses the chess game, and he's really distraught about it. But that night, we go to the satanic ritual.
Oh, you're missing the part where Joan meets Karen. Karen walks through the door into the bedroom before they start fixing Joan up for the...
Yes, and Joan tells Karen that her father has come for her. Karloff takes her away and does something to her. I think...
You hear Karen
screaming. Yeah, so I think Karen is killed at this point.
I think so, too.
It's not made very clear, but...
It doesn't later on.
Well, later on. Because she's killed later on.
Because, Bela Lugosi goes to see his... Because when Bela Lugosi rescues Joan, he goes up to that room and she's dead.
Yeah. So she is killed by Karloff. But anyway, that night there is a satanic ritual. Joan faints and Karloff recites nonsense Latin. There's actually like translations you can find online. It's just random Latin sayings. And there's like all these cultists there. A woman in the ritual screams and like passes out for some reason.
She does it deliberately because she looks over to Bela Lugosi.
Okay.
And then she does the pass out. Scream and pass out.
So why did she do that?
He must have got one of the girls to do something to create the scene.
They're all cultists. They're all loyal to Karloff. I don't understand that.
I don't either, but that's what it was.
It happens. It happens for some reason. There are parts of this plot that do not make sense, and that's one of them. I just do not understand why this happens. So Bella finds Karen's body. Karloff had killed her earlier. Bella and Karloff end up fighting. Bella ends up strapping Karloff to his own sacrificial altar and grabs a scalpel and starts flaying him alive.
Says he's going to flay him alive.
And he does, because Karloff's screaming. He does do it.
And I don't actually... I don't blame...
No.
Because you get from the conversations between Karloff and Bela Lugosi that this character caused like 10,000, wasn't it 10,000 people to die?
Something like that. So at this point, Joan's on the ground while Bella's like flaying this dude alive. And he goes down to like help her up because she is completely out of her wits. And at this point, Peter Allison sees Bella and her through like these bars, and he thinks that Bella is actually hurting her. And honestly, I don't blame him really. So Peter ends up shooting Bella in the back. And Bella turns around. He's not dead, and he goes, I you didn't have to do that. I was trying to help her. And like Allison kind of comes to her senses with the gunshot. And he goes, don't worry, I understand how that could have looked. And like you go, oh crap, Bella's like actually a really nice guy. If I got shot, I don't care who shot me. I'd be pretty pissed off. But he's like, don't worry, I didn't think I was going to leave here alive anyway.
He didn't.
And he didn't.
Planned.
Yeah, because it turns out like Karloff, like all evil villains, ends up having like dynamite, 500 tons of dynamite underneath his house.
It had to be, because all Bela Lugosi did was pull a few switches to get the...
Because there was dynamite rigged to be blown up in case Karloff was ever found out. He had rigged all of this old dynamite up to blow up.
And Peter and Joan escape.
Yes.
And are found on the road by the police.
Just a random passerby.
And then the next scene is they're in a train.
They're in a train on the Orient Express
and
again.
He's
reading a review of his latest book.
I thought it was supposed to be in America.
It could be. It doesn't matter. He's reading the review of his latest book, and the reviewer is saying how this Black Cat mystery...
Three murder mystery was...
a complete, it's completely out of the realm of possibility.
Real.
It was based on the events that happened with Karloff and Lugosi. The end. Okay, so it's a short movie. There are things that work, and I'm going to go with it. Karloff and Lugosi, I've already said many times, they're screen gems. They work. Every time they're on screen, it doesn't matter if the Allisons might technically be our perspective characters on all this. They're the everymen in this, trying to like explore this weird world. It does not matter. Karloff and Lugosi are on the screen. They are the stars. That's it. And I don't know if it helps or hinders the movie, but I don't care. Their acting is fantastic. The sets are fantastic. Universal sets in general are good in general.
Even though they told a lot of the backstory instead of like showed it, it was a good way of doing it. It was them being antagonists to each other. Mm-hmm. And it come out piece by piece, but you still didn't know all of it.
The sets say a lot about Karloff's character because he's supposed to be an architect. And if this is the place that he built, this kind of brutalist architecture says quite a bit about him.
Oh, and the smoking jacket comes off very like it was white here and black velvet.
Yeah, it's a fantastic. He has, the costume in this is very good too.
So you look at Bela Lugosi's outfit is just like a Sherlock Holmes like coat. It even has the big back.
I don't know. I would say it's pretty standard for like, let's say the 1920s.
Yes, and that's what I was saying.
He feels a little out of place in 1934, but being that he just escaped from a gulag, fine. I bet. Absolutely. He probably picked that up somewhere in the back end of the Soviet Union.
And it comes out to me being kind of brown and drab, and it creates a contradiction between the two of them.
Sure.
Because one's wearing these strange, uncommon outfits.
Yeah.
And oozes money and stuff like that. And the other one oozes, got it off of the dime store rack.
Sure.
So that's kind of, I wanted to bring that up because it told part of the story just in costumes.
The costume sets, acting. Great. All of it great. I don't know if I can say anything else specifically works in this film. What doesn't work, though, is the plot. The plot is jumpy at times. It's a little disjointed. There's no reason for that cultist to just scream out of nowhere, pass out, and stop this ritual.
You didn't have a cue to it.
It didn't feel like it was organic.
So there needed to be maybe a little bit more.
I thought the introduction of Lugosi was poor with him like stroking this woman's hair because it came across immediately as him being one of the villains in this, but it turns out like he's actually a good guy. And
I think that was a purpose, though.
Maybe because I guess Bela plays villains quite a bit.
And they wanted you to expect him to be the villain.
But it just came across as weird and creepy because he was still just as charming as always. Like, and acting all apologetic about it. And you believed him because the man can charm the pants off anyone.
But these two characters kept on going into Joan's room, and you're like, without Peter there. And
because they're
came
like
off,
drooling over her in different ways. Like, I don't think Bella is really. He's being protective of her. Because
and if you look at from hindsight, you look at the petting of the hair, it probably is that.
He's being very protective, especially knowing that she is here and being basically prepared for sacrifice. He's trying to protect her. He's always there because he doesn't want Karloff to come in and basically either rape her or kill her. Like, great. I think the characters in this are interesting. I just don't think they have enough time to really grow really well. We're told a lot rather than shown. Okay, fine. It's 1934. It's a different time.
It's only it's a little over an hour.
Yeah. So, is there anything that you really think doesn't work besides maybe the plot being disjointed?
What I was going to say on the plot thing is, if they gave you another 30 minutes, do you think they would have made it?
I don't think for 1934 another 30 minutes would have helped much. I think maybe another 5 or 6.
Okay.
That's it. Like, another 5 or 6. Let's get to know Bella Lugosi's character a little bit. Let's have a scene that
Bella Lugosi
let's have a scene where Bella Lugosi is escaping from the gulag and like looking at the one thing he's been able to save through his entire time at the gulag, like a picture of his wife and daughter. And it's just a quick, brief glimpse of him like escaping through the Soviet Union, and then we understand his drive. Okay,
that would be one. But the other scene they need is more intrigue over, because you do see
over. Okay,
you're seeing that Bella Lugosi's character is talking to one of the servants that is Karloff's servant.
Either the major domo or
it's the other one,
Thermal or whatever his name is.
You should have seen that also with Thermal talking to the cultist.
Sure.
Maybe put her in there to do this. That would have connected a lot more.
Okay.
Maybe seeing that Thal was with him in
Thermal.
With him in wherever
in the
gulag, or in where they were in World War I.
Mm-hmm. But all right, so there isn't a lot that doesn't work in this. We do tend to actually think a lot more works in it just because of the charisma of the two Universal monster actors. Do we recommend this film? I do.
I think I would. I think I would.
I recommend it. I would even say I highly recommend it. I think it's better than a lot of the lesser Universal horror movies, like the weirder ones. If
there were awards given at this time, I think this would have been a award.
Were given, but
were they?
Yeah.
Did it win some?
No.
Because this was a top end for that time.
Sure. Yeah, it was. I think it was great. I do highly recommend it. I'd actually even say this is kind of a 7.5 out of 10 for me.
And think of it as a psychological horror.
Yeah, it's not a science fiction movie. It's horror, but since it's weird, it does fit into Earth versus Soup. I expected a little bit of mad science in it for some reason, but then I like actually read. So the only reason we wanted to do this is we saw the movie poster for it at Famous Monster Pizza, that restaurant that we talked about that's down in Indiana that we've gone to a few times. And we loved the movie poster. We're like, oh man, it has Lugosi and Karloff in it. We got to watch it.
And a big black cat screaming.
We're like, okay, well, this is going to be great. It's Universal. It's going to be weird. It's going to be great. But I expected there to be some sort of like mad scientist in it, or something like that, or ghosts. But it just turns out that it's a satanic cult.
in some weird way that he's preserving these women.
It's supposed to be like taxidermy, but also, I don't know. It's weird. I like this movie. It has style. It has atmosphere. It has lots of charisma oozing out of it. So yeah, I recommend it. Darlene recommends it. We can hold it there for the night. Do you have any other kind of final things to say about it, Darlene?
Not really.
Okay, so I'm Aaron.
I'm Darlene. Good evening.
And keep watching the skies.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.